All right. The long, oh, hang on, I gotta wait for that noise. Okay, the long awaited interview. He is an alumni of Colby Sawyer College. He is a photographer. He is also a great buddy of mine, amazing humanitarian, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Anthony Riso. Thank you for being on the podcast, my friend. It's an honor to have you.
Hey, it's good to be here. You definitely watched a lot of Hot Ones, didn't you?
I did,
I
man.
can I can tell from that intro.
Yo, I'll tell you right now, I don't know what it is about chicken wings. So first off, I got to be careful watching that because, like, my chicken wings is like my kryptonite, right?
Oh,
So
same,
when I
yeah.
see people eating wings on TV, I'm like, damn. Especially with all the sauce, it just makes you want to order something, get some fries with it.
hmm
Oh, man, get a couple beers. That's probably why Sean lost all his hair because, with all the spices and whatnot.
Dude, that's why I'm bald. Like,
Yo, oh man, I feel like the shine from your head, bro, is about to just blind me for a second. Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. I mean, I like destroyed my stomach because I got so into that show. I started like eating
Yeah.
all the hot sauces, and now when I eat hot sauce, it just like absolutely floors me. But
I, I yeah, man. It's funny. I think hot chicken wings really does bring out a very, I would say,
yeah,
honest side out of people. Because it's like you're eating those wings and you're getting
right.
tense and you're drinking the milk. You're like, I saw I watched this interview with Aubrey Plaza. That was one of them. And
Yeah, yeah,
she's
yeah.
like one of the most awkward people on the
I
planet. But
know.
as soon as you put her in a setting where she has to eat chicken wings, it's like she becomes a human being.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, Aubrey. But oh man. Yo, dude, before I get into the questions real quick, like how you doing, man? Like it's good to
Good.
have you on.
Yeah, I just
Good.
made some tacos. Just got finished
Nice.
eating those. And yeah, I went to the gym, did some cardio legs today. Not
Cool.
bad.
You
Not
picked the
bad. It
wrong
was
day
a
for
busy day at
tacos,
work.
man.
What?
You picked the wrong day for tacos, man. You're supposed to do that on Taco Tuesday, man. It's Wednesday.
Oh, true.
It's
True.
today's
Yeah, I
hump
missed
day.
that. Today's Wine Wednesday, and I'm not drinking wine. I'm drinking Jack Daniels and Coke. So
Hey, I like that. That looks good, man. Jeez, it's been so long since I've had liquor. Oh my God. When this pandemic
it's
ends, I'm
probably
going
good.
crazy.
It's yeah. Everyone is. Everyone is.
Hmm.
It's yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Man, Anthony, I mean, you've been doing this photography stuff since like, you know, while I was since like 2017, 2018 it feels like since I was at the later stages of college.
yeah.
How did you get started?
It's kind of weird, like how people just fall into to shit like that. Like, um, I don't know. I never really thought I'd be a photographer. Um, and then my cousins have their wedding photography business, and they kind of just asked me like, "Hey, do you want to be like a helping hand, like a hired hand on like our photo shoot set?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." They paid me like a little bit of money from what they got. And I mean, the main thing was I was getting paid in experience, and they taught me how to use a camera, and I could see how they were framing shots and getting all these different angles and stuff and lighting different scenarios. Um, and as soon as they like handed me a pro level DSLR camera and I like clicked that shutter button, it was like such a satisfying feeling. And that just like started everything. Like I would be like texting them questions about cameras and stuff, and then I finally got my own like beginner level camera, and then I keep texting them questions about like, oh, like what if I do this? And like I got out and just kept experimenting and taking really what I think are really crappy photos now, but like back then I didn't give a shit because I was just like I was so in love with it, and just discovering this like passion that I had, just running out and hiking around and taking photos of different things. So
And just so we're clear, so we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about the photography, we're gonna talk about romance, we're gonna talk about entrepreneurship, nature, nerd culture, and for you,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
anything's on the table for you, my friend. If there's anything else you want to address, like,
Yeah.
feel free.
Yeah.
Just so just a reminder, we'll be able to get into all sorts of stuff. But
Yeah.
back to the photography. You're like just looking at your page on Instagram. I mean, like you've done like a ton of shots for like weddings, engagement photos, a lot of sort
Hmm.
of intimate couples, nature. I guess like what is your mindset going into a shoot? What does that process look like for you as far as I mean, everything, your conversations with clientele or your kind of ideas for how you
Yeah.
want to make this look.
It sounds bad, but like I don't really think at all. Like I do and I don't. Like I try not to overthink things. And it's weird because as soon as I meet the couple, I get ideas. But it's like everyone's different. Everyone's gonna pose differently. Everyone's gonna look different behind, when the photo's actually taken. And yeah, so when I usually like meet the couple, I kind of just run with it, and I I get them comfortable first. I make them laugh. Um, I essentially just make friends with them, and I think the most beautiful moments are um, when you drop those walls in some people and get those genuine moments. I always say like the moments leading up to and after when you like pose a couple or when you like have them do something, those are when you get the genuine moments. Like some of my favorite photos have been like, a groom helping a bride up onto a rock or something, while they're trying to like get to where I want them, because like that's them. That's not like, a posed photo or anything. So it's those moments that are truly like genuine.
Yeah, when looking at your art, like I see a ton of candid yet intimate photos of couples. It just when I see you taking these photos, it just feels so natural. Now you talked about, you bonding with the couple. How important is your relationship with the couple, you would say, to would you say is vital to how good the shoot is going to be?
I'd say it's everything. I've had I've only had like a few couples that, for whatever reason I didn't like jive with them or something. And to be honest, like those weren't photos that I felt came out as good as they could have had I like, there were still good photos and, a couple still loved them. But if I don't have that connection with the couple, the photos aren't anywhere near what I want them to be. And you can tell like when I'm more comfortable with a couple, I I think of more creative ideas, and it allows me to be creative and get better shots for them if they're, kind and open people.
Now there's a lot that goes into photography, right? Meeting up with the people or wherever the spot you're going to shoot, the
Right.
editing, the editing and the actual case shooting and the getting inspiration in the middle of the shoot. What part of that process, I guess, excites you the most and why?
Um, that's a good question. I think like probably meeting up and actually doing the shoot is good. Um, that's a really exciting part because I kind of get to test out different ideas that I have and figure out what works and what doesn't, and I get to meet the couple and get comfortable with them and see them kind of relax and be themselves. Um, and I think like for me, I love editing too. Like when I sit down and actually look at the photos, when I see the before and after, it's like, holy crap, like this photo is completely different now, but it's like its true colors really like literally really come out like after they go through the editing software and I can do all I want to them. I'm always thinking about when I'm taking a photo, I'm thinking about like what I'm going to be doing in the editing room, because if you're not doing that, then you get to the editing room and you're screwed. Like you're like, oh, I don't know how like I want to edit this, you know? So
Yeah, well, we talked about this off camera before about how important and how I think underappreciated the editing process is in the field
yeah,
of media. You know,
yeah.
I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit on how important is the editing process. Like we only see the end product, but talk about like what it's like, that process to get to that end product when you're in
Oh
with the
yeah,
editing aspect.
it's everything. Like, you know, some posts on Instagram, you know, people will see it and they'll be like, oh, like great photo, whatever. They don't understand that to get that one photo, I took 100 photos and I hated 95 of them. I had to choose between the five that I did like, and that's a hard first step. And then, you know, editing that, finding the right tones and the right colors and stuff like that. Um, and then I'll export the photo, look at it on my phone, because every screen looks different. Um, Especially if you don't calibrate your monitor. I haven't calibrated my monitor because I haven't bought the software yet, but so I'll export it to my iPhone and I'll be like, oh, that's weird. Like this photo is really yellow or something. Um, so then I keep tweaking it after that, and I keep exporting it, and like finally after like 8 different exportings, I'm finally like, you know what, I just have to like, I have to live with this. I like it finally. But it's minute details that people wouldn't really care about, but for me, like it's everything. Like the smallest details make or break a photo, a film, whatever you're working on. Like any work of art, it's those like tiny, tiny little details that make it whole.
Well, I know what you mean. Like it's such a visual medium. Like for like I'm sure this happens to you a lot, and it sounds like you've talked about it. Like you'll see a work that you did 2 years ago, right? And you might have, loved how it came out 2 years ago, and then you look back and you're like, well, maybe there wasn't
Right,
maybe there wasn't enough space between the elbow and the
right.
edge of the photo, or like the or like the eye, there was a little too much darkness under the eyelids,
Dude,
like
I do
the
that all
little
the
things
time.
the little
Dude, I do
things
that.
that
I literally,
um
I've gone back to so many of my photos and like, you know, from like a couple of years ago, and I just go, like, you know. But at the time, I can't hate it because, you know, I was learning, and at the time that was my best.
hmm
And like I'm sure like 2 years from now I'll look at the photos that I'm taking now and say like I could have done this better. But like that's the whole point. Like we're always evolving and changing, and you know, yeah, it's always a changing cycle.
yeah, well, I think it's funny because like I've heard some. I guess this is a good way for me to kind of like, I could segue into this part, the aspect of, or I should say before that, even with the camera, like when you started, like were you, I know, like, did you start with the beginner camera right away, or were you taking a lot of pictures with like your phone? Like how, what was that process like of
Yeah,
going from beginner's camera to, whatever camera you're using now? I'd love if you could, if you're willing to share what kind of camera you're using now, but what was that like as far as what were you using to take pictures of and how long, I guess?
yeah. So I started with a Nikon D5300,
Okay.
which is like a really entry level camera. Um, and it only had like a kit lens on it, which, you know, if you don't know, like kit lenses are notoriously like the shittiest lenses you can get, basically. Um, but to be honest, like I think everyone should cut their teeth on like a beginner level camera, because I was forced to you know, really think outside of the box to get things done and work with the limitations that the beginner camera threw at me, like, not being good in low light, or, certain things like that. Um, and, putting that camera in manual mode instead of just letting the camera do its thing, and, put it in auto and get away with the camera doing the work. I learned the basics, and, I see people, not to crap on other professionals, but like, I see people that start their own photography businesses or start photography, and they buy the most expensive camera and then just put it in auto mode and shoot in JPEG and not RAW format, and they don't edit their photos, or, something like that. And it's like, you might as well just use your iPhone at that point, because that $8,000 camera isn't really meant to it will take great photos that way, but it's not meant to be used that way. If you want something that'll do everything for you, just shoot with your iPhone. And honestly, like, I know professionals that mess around with their iPhone and make YouTube videos about iPhone photography, and you can take just as good of a shot with your iPhone as you can with a pro level DSLR these days. It's insane. So I always like, kind of not frown upon, but I see people with like wicked expensive cameras, that are just starting out, and I'm like, you don't need that.
Well,
It's overkill.
that makes me wonder, right? I think it's and I guess this would be a nice segue into the entrepreneurship aspect, but I'll ask you the question that, how much of that do you think is influenced by, I feel like, this desire to get off the ground quickly, so to speak, take the sexiest photos, put
Yeah,
them on the gram, and that way you get 1,000 followers in like 6 days, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like this is the king.
right,
Like, it's,
right.
as opposed to kind of
Yeah,
having
I think
to, you know where I'm going with
I
this, so
think
I'll
like
let you.
any creative would tell you that's bullshit. Like, even, the best entrepreneurs will tell you that's bullshit, because like, there's, most of the time, all of these creatives and stuff like Peter McKinnon on YouTube or whatever, like, had been doing photography for years and years, and really learning their craft. And most of them, like, they had they just had a love for it and kept doing it, and they didn't really care about, like, and some of them still don't, even though they make a living out of it, but didn't care that they had like 80 more followers on Instagram, every day or whatever. There's no, like, I hate this like get rich quick scheme kind of like mindset, because like, and I like, I learned too, like, I feel like a couple years ago, like, I started to realize it's not about like the big moves. It's about like, what tiny thing can you do like every day to create a long-term success story for yourself.
Mm.
Like, just tonight, like, I emailed back a client for a wedding. That's, that took maybe 5 minutes of my day, but, who knows? Like, that's one more wedding. That could be one more wedding deposit. That could be more gear for myself. You know, um, it's little things like that, man, where like, you're paving the way to a long-term success story, instead of, I want to have 10,000 followers tomorrow on Instagram. Maybe Rich and Facts will do that for me, but like, I don't,
I don't know about that, but I would love if that could be the case. Hey, I'm going to
but
promote the
like,
hell out of this, by the way.
oh, me too. But like,
Hey,
I'm almost at like, I think 2,000 followers on Instagram, but like, you know,
just the
it's
count.
so and it's so random too. Like, the people that get followers, it's like, a lot of the times I see their photos and I'm like, I'm taking just as good of photos as they are, and they have more followers, like whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
they just got, for whatever reason, the Instagram algorithm, more people found them or whatever, and that's just how it works. But I'm not going to stop making content because so and so has 10,000 followers and I have 2,000.
Well, I'll bring up Peter McKinnon a little later. I know you mentioned him in some of your other videos. I don't know if I'm a big Gary V fan. I don't know if you know Gary
Oh,
V,
me
but
too.
he's
I
really
love Gary
big.
Vee.
So you
Yeah,
already
yeah,
know I'm
yeah.
going with this, and I feel like, you know, to now get it. So you made a video. I don't know. I forget if it was a year or two ago, and it was called "I Am a Photographer." And the reason why I
Yeah.
want to bring it up in this context is because, you talked about with the follower count and that, kind of having its own sort of, that I would say its own dichotomy as far as competition and how people perceive you. I thought that was a very inspirational movie because, there seems to be this stigma with entrepreneurship that if you want to be a photographer or an actor or like a YouTuber, a gamer, whatever, streamer, you have to have a certain, like, a million followers, a blue check on Twitter
Right.
or Instagram.
Right.
And I think that also makes people want to get off the ground quickly and not stall. But at the same time, I think it also really discourages people from even starting and wanting to build that sort of long-term process you're talking about, because there's a lot, it's, being an entrepreneur is a lot different than you clocking into a 9 to 5 job. You're going to get
Right.
paid either by salary or by hour, whereas like you being a photographer or me running a YouTube channel / podcast, you're most likely not going to get that. You're not going to get that monetary gain right away, right?
Right.
There's a whole process to that. And when you talk to friends and peers, there's a good chance you might not get that real support because we're just not taught to be, we're not taught to do it that way, right? We're taught to kind of fall in line. And,
Right.
I want to kind of, get your perspective. What was that like for you just starting out as a photographer? Because you did talk briefly how, like, you were kind of getting a lot of flack for doing that. I want to know, like, what your process was like starting as a photography, and like as far as like how people were kind of perceiving you, and what was it like putting that video together? Because it seemed like there were a lot of people in your position who had dealt with criticism because they didn't meet X or XY's
Right.
expectations.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah. I honestly, I still get that bullshit today.
mm-hmm,
Like, like you're not a photographer because of like XYZ, or, you're not a photographer because you're not shooting for Geographic, or, all this stuff. And it's like, fuck it. Like, like if you're going to do something, just start it, and like who cares what people say about it. My favorite thing is when like I run into somebody that isn't even a photographer, and they're like, I'm like, yeah, I'm a photographer, and they're like, oh, my husband takes great photos, and or my uncle is an amazing photographer. It's like, they're trying to like, it's almost like they're like trying to like belittle you or something, like
yeah.
not maybe with those examples, but like um they show you like somebody that they know that's a photographer, and it's almost like they're like, oh, photographer, and it's like, oh, but so am I.
Yeah.
um so I don't, yeah, it's always like a losing battle to try to like appeal to the masses, and I think that's like what people like Peter McKinnon and Gary Vee would say. It's like, unless you're doing it, don't fucking say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't say anything to people that are doing it, because like you don't know anything about what they're doing. um and those people are marching to their own beat, and yeah, you shouldn't comment on what people are doing. Like, the most recent thing I can think of is like, people are always down on ASMR artists, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know, listeners don't know, um it, it it's basically like whispers and things that create tingles when you're listening to it and stuff like that. And there are some really like creative people on YouTube like making this content, and it's still such a frowned upon thing to create because people think it's like weird. Um, but man, like these people are so creative, and they, you know, these people don't care that you don't like ASMR because they have like 5 million subscribers on YouTube, and they're doing it full time. So like you can say whatever you want, but these people are doing the thing, and you're sitting at home hating on them and scratching your balls and doing nothing with your life. So like it's like, yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Well,
There's always going to people that comment on what you're doing. If you're passionate about something, there's going to be people that are doubting you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being honest about that, because I think like, I think like it, especially in a medium like this where you are, right, wrong, or otherwise, you are looking for some sort of public validation, right? It's a visual medium.
Mm-hmm.
So storytelling, photography, acting, you're looking to get approval from the masses. At the same time, I think it's really important to obviously kind of what you were saying, like own it, because, I see surveys, from like legitimate sources like NYT, Forbes all the time talking about how, 40 to 60% of Americans aren't happy with their jobs. And,
Right.
I hate it. I was miserable at my last job. I've had friends who are right now and who have been in the past miserable with their jobs. And, so when I connect that to what it's like for entrepreneurs like yourself to get criticized, I feel like a lot of that is connected as far as we're taught to assimilate. And there are entrepreneurs, like yourself, who go against that grain. And that can be very scary for someone to see that, because it's like there's a lot of people out there who want to be doing something than what they're unhappy doing in their life right now as a full-time career, but they don't know how. They're afraid. First off, I think the most important thing that's underrated is, at the end of the day, we all want to be loved. We don't want to be judged harshly for the things that we do. People don't want to be, no one wants to be criticized if they pick up a camera or they pick up a microphone. Like, we want the approval. We want the fame. We want the hugs and kisses. And, the average person in their community, if they tell their mom or their dad, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to drop out of college, or I'm going to drop out of work to be a full-time YouTuber who does gaming, or a full-time photographer, or whatever, look at you like, what if you don't get your ass back to work? Like, I'm not like when you getting paid to do this? It's just one of the, I think the floor is yours, my friend.
I think like the main thing is like people are afraid in today's day and age, and maybe always, people are afraid at being shitty at things at first. It goes back to that like long-term success thing that I was talking about. Like, you're not going to be, Michael Jordan tomorrow. Like, if you just picked up a basketball, you got to work at it. You got to spend every day grinding. And, I think about my favorite musician, Frank Turner, who I have two tattoos for.
You mentioned him too in one of your videos. I was like, oh man, there's a couple dudes, there's someone else.
Yeah. And I think about him, and like, when he was starting out, it was just him and his guitar and shitty bars, in London, playing to, 5 people that may be glancing up from their beer every few seconds, if they hear, something good, but no one gave a shit. And now he's an international, like, rock star. Like, he's toured around the world and doing it full time. But like, that's the thing that people don't understand, is like, no one's gonna give a shit in the beginning, and they might not even 5 years after you still are doing your thing. But it's important not to get caught up in the external validation. from that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
And you know, I spend more time on YouTube than I know I should. But you know, with that being said, I obviously I'm watching a lot of content creators, and I have so much respect for content creators like yourself, because it's, as a creative entrepreneur, you're not getting that validation, the money, the check right away. Because at the end of the day, let's be real, bills got to get paid. So that takes a lot of, and you know, and this is your business, this is your brand. If it fails, you can't blame your boss, you can't blame the company, you can't blame
Right.
your coworker. Like, this
Right.
is all on you. If it works, it's on you. If it falls, it's on you. And I don't
Yeah.
think people on the outside appreciate how difficult all that pressure is,
Hmm.
right? Just to be able to do it. And not only that, to be consistent with it. It's tough to commit to something when we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right away.
Right.
Right. I think that's just basic human nature. Obviously, there are a few of those who've been able to become that Michael Jordan, become the Frank Turner, become the other, you know, the Gary V.
Hmm.
Right. But it's those guys had to be willing to, most importantly, not be afraid to look stupid as they struggled for their dreams.
Right.
Right. That's the thing. Like, it, because the grind, people are, you know, you might not have a camera, but people are going to see you grinding, and they're going to see you fail and make mistakes, and
Hmm.
nobody wants to look bad. So I think that's definitely tough for someone to have the mental toughness to go through that process of
Hmm.
learning how to be great, willing to listen, to accept positive, you know, positive and negative feedback, and know how to filter it out, know how to kind of not let your ego get in the way of you wanting to be humble and learning how to grow. I'm sure
Right.
back then and even now, like, you know, there's times when maybe someone told you weren't doing something so well, and you're like, man, fuck you, man. I've been doing this for so, you don't know what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
then you're like, damn, well, you know what? If I really want to be great at this, I got to be willing to take criticism. I got to be willing to learn, to unlearn, and then to relearn. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's
Right.
the, and again, like, that's one of those things that I think gets undervalued in this, in the creative entrepreneur business, in that I don't have the right word to say, but in the sort of salary 9 to 5. And that's not me knocking a 9 to 5 or anything like that, but it's just, I think there's a whole different aspect to this creative entrepreneur business. And to add on to something you said earlier, you know, I saw this tweet from one of my favorite content creators, and basically he was saying, you know, like, YouTube comedy was looked down upon until the money came in.
Mm.
Gaming was looked down upon until
Right.
it became a $200 billion industry. Like,
Dude,
before we had,
I never knew that I would be watching. I'm a
mm-hmm.
Twitch moderator now. Like,
Yeah,
I watch my friend GP every night, like, play Minecraft. I don't play Minecraft, but it's still like really entertaining watching him play.
yeah.
Never in a million years did I think that that would be a thing. You know?
Like, we grew up in an era where, like, it was, the stigma against playing video games was so bad. Like, I had, you know, like, we, you know, I mean, of course, like, the guys who played video games and, you know, were known as the kids who were nerdy, didn't shower, you know, were socially inept, you
There
know.
still is some of that.
Still
Like,
some of that.
there's dude,
That's
I don't want to bring a girl home because, like, I have fucking, like, Master Chief action
oh
figures and
man.
shit, and like I gotta, like, hide this stuff, you know?
let me tell you. Let me tell you what, man. And we're, you know, mm, it's interesting because you know, the medium is there for it. Like, are you familiar with Mr. Beast?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
of
So
course.
you
Yeah.
know Mr. Beast. He's like one of the biggest nerds on the planet, but he is like one of the most successful nerds. Like, he's one of those nerds. You can tell he's one of those. You can tell he's one of those kids that really didn't fit in growing
Right.
up.
But
But
if you watch his beginning videos, no
mhm,
one was watching him making those.
yeah.
And then, like, he just kept doing it. He just kept, like, being his natural self, his awkward self, and he still is. But he's dropping like $100,000, you know, like, on random people on the street, you know, now because, you know, he made it. But the whole time he was just, like, being weird and, like, doing his own
Mhm.
thing. That's
Well,
the beauty of it.
and I think, to add to the beauty of it, I think that, you know, and this is one of the plus sides of social medias, I think people like myself have someone who huge nerd growing up, closet nerd in high school and college, to be able to see so many content creators now who are making it and they're
Yeah.
still able to have some sort of like, because again, like you said, there are definitely plenty of people out there who still fit that stereotype, right? But
Right.
now that because of social media, you're seeing other content creators, who are just, they're just chill regular dudes like me and you, who just happen to be really passionate
And the thing
about.
is,
Mhm.
those content creators reinvent mainstream content.
Right.
So you see people like Conan O'Brien on his show. He now has like a amateur gamer segment where he plays like, a video game he's never played with a celebrity and like
Mhm.
sucks at it. Like that would have never happened if Twitch wasn't a thing and
Yeah.
gamers didn't like, so like it's the people on the fringe that eventually influence the mainstream, and then the mainstream steals it,
Mhm.
like,
Well,
but it's
it's funny, man. Man, I feel like we're about to just jump into the nerd culture. We might as well just get to the nerd culture topic right now.
we can we
You know,
can
I think I touched on a lot of I think I basically, let me see where I was at. Well, I got a few more questions on that, but I'll touch back on that a little later.
Yeah.
But as far as like nerd culture is concerned, right? When I first walked into your room for the first time in Burpee, I remember the first two things I saw. I saw a palm tree and a guitar in the back of the room.
Dude, it's right
Yup.
there.
And then I saw a freaking Nintendo 64 with the cartridge in the controller. And I remember my first thought is, yo, this guy's cool, man. Like, I feel like I was like, yo, I feel like me and this dude could really get along someday. I was like, I can see the palm tree and the guitar. I'm like, this dude's kind of a hippie, but he's a cool hippie, right? Right? He's a cool hippie. So I'm like, yo, like this dude, this can work. And it's like, dude, for me growing up, right? I grew up on 64, GameCube, Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart Double Dash,
Mhm.
Sonic Adventure 2, Star Fox. I mean, DBZ, Naruto games. Like, what was? And I see the good for me. I basically everybody I hung around with was a huge nerd too. So I had a ton of friends that would
Yeah.
always come over. I'd always have video games to play with. I'd always have friends, bunch of friends coming over. What was your gaming experience like growing up?
um I spent a lot of time with my older brother because we shared a room,
Mm-hmm.
and my older brother and all of his friends were massive stoners. So like literally like they would just get stoned and play video games, and I would be there like, either playing with them or most of the time being forced to watch them play video games. And they were also into like DBZ and stuff, and I think like because of that, I was just always into like video games, and my dad like always got us like the one N64 game that we wanted for Christmas, like the next Zelda game or like whatever, um and so that was like part of it too. But like, we also messed around outside and like, you know, rode our bikes and into bushes and shit because of Jackass, and we wanted to like hurt ourselves for some reason. Thought that was hilarious. But like I think I grew up in a very like non like cliquish uh scenario where like you could play video games and watch Dragon Ball Z, but also like play soccer and do all these other things, and be a stoner, and like
Yeah.
there wasn't like one like pigeonholed thing. And I think that like carried on to the rest of my life because like, dude, I'm into like so many different things. I can't even like I I don't
You're
know like what I
universal.
would. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just like, I like what I like, and if I see something where I'm like, that's kind of cool, I get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why like high school I think was so hard for me, because like there was like you know, the football players and like the skaters. And then there was me, and I was like, man, I just like everything. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh my
I
God.
was friends with some football players. I was friends with some skaters. I was
Hmm.
friends with some stoners. I was friends with some like crack dealers. It's, you know, criminals. Like, you know, like I didn't really
For the
care. Like,
probation, the pro guys on
yeah, like
probation.
kids that were going to juvie. Like, you know, I didn't give a shit. Like, if they were
Oh my
if I
God.
enjoyed, you know, what they had to say, or like thought they were funny, or thought, you know, it was a good time, I'd hang out. But
Well, I think that's really interesting, right? Because I think I don't think back then I don't think being universal was cool, right? Like if you were,
no, you were like on the outside
yeah,
because you didn't have like a thing to
mm-hmm,
that people could like characterize you as like, oh, he's a jock, or like he's a nerd or whatever, you know, like
mm-hmm,
people just were like, oh, he's a fucking weirdo because he doesn't fall into any of those.
yeah. That's exactly where I was. I was definitely like in that. I was definitely in that middle, right? Because like I wasn't athletic enough to be a jock, and I wasn't that deep into the nerd stereotype where I was
Hmm.
like I wasn't wearing the Naruto headband running down the hall. Yeah,
Hold my Texas Instrument.
I
Like,
wore
oh my,
deodorant. You know what I mean? Like I wore like
yeah,
I
yeah.
wore deodorant. yo, yo, oh my God. It's funny because I tell this to my friends, right? I feel like though the people who are wearing the Naruto headbands, the kids who are playing Yu-Gi-Oh in the cafeteria and whatnot. See, I feel like you had to have people like that, to be
Yeah,
able to basically just like drive it home that there was something serious going on. And then eventually the cool kids looked in and were like, yo, this stuff's actually kind of cool.
dude,
Like,
going off of that, like the reason why I realized, like, all right, dude, I need to fucking do this podcast tonight. Like, no
yeah,
matter how busy I am, dude, I just had got done my workout,
okay.
and this big dude like walks out of the locker room wearing a fucking Naruto headband
Oh my
at,
God.
yo,
At the gym? At the
yeah,
gym?
like at the gym, like this big dude, like sporty as fuck, like
Mm-hmm.
handsome guy wearing a shiny ass Naruto headband. And I was like, yo, like this like is just relates to, you know, what Rich and I were gonna talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that like, dude, if especially at the gym, man, like, you know, people wearing like Punisher shirts and like
Mm-hmm.
being all macho and shit. And then you have this guy, probably bigger than most people at the gym, sporting a fucking Naruto headband, going hard, like, you know, probably
Can't
benching
say
like
nothing.
fucking 250, 300. It's crazy. Like, like that just shows like the times, you
The
know.
times have changed. Like Meg the Stallion, for example, huge anime fan. She's done like
Mm,
photo shoots. Michael B. Jordan. I was literally just reading a featured article on Michael B. Jordan today in Sports Illustrated. They made a note. Dude's a massive anime fan, right? He loves Dragon Ball. He loves
yeah.
Naruto, Big Sean. Who else am I thinking
Terry
about?
Crews is a gamer because his son like got
Yeah.
into it, and like, dude, Henry Cavill, the guy who plays The Witcher, um, got like wanted the part so bad because he loved the Witcher series.
Mm-hmm.
Like he loved the games, and like had his own PC that he built and stuff. And so he was always a nerd. And then this part came up, and he was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do it!" Like, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, look at AOC was playing like Among Us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a
Oh
couple
my
months ago.
god,
I remember you're the one that
that
posted
was
about that.
dude, that
Yeah.
was so adorable. Like, I
Oh
love
my
AOC.
God.
AOC's like the most amazing person, and that stream, like,
It
that was
sold you.
such a good
It
stream.
sold you. Oh my God. It was just like Cupid, just fire Cupid's arrow, man.
Yeah.
Man, don't worry, don't worry. We'll get into the romance soon. It's interesting because I feel like we just needed the cool kids to like accept it. And I'll tell you what, I have really seen it like as far as Because, you know, it's like now I'm seeing the dudes like that getting the girls. And that makes me think, you know, what it came down. And I'll share a quick story about this when I was like, and it was funny. I won't mention his name, but it was a buddy of mine a couple years ago. Me and him went to this rooftop bar. It was like a Felipe's, right? And I go in.
I know, right?
Yo,
I know what you're talking about.
oh
No,
my God.
I think I know.
No, I'll tell you what. You know who this person is, and I'll let him tell this story to you on it. I'll let him validate himself in this story. But me and him, we went to like a rooftop bar a couple years ago, and I came in there, you know, with a Naruto T-shirt, right? And I saw this couple that they were looking at me and they were giggling, and like half of me thought they were making fun of me. So I was like, all right, whatever, screw them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna do me. So, you know, me and my buddy, we sit at like the bar of the rooftop bar, you know, we're eating our food or whatever. And then, so like the guy in that group comes up to me after a little bit and he's like, hey man, you like Naruto? I'm like, yeah, why? And he was like, oh, word, you know, my girlfriend, you know, she's a big anime fan. She just got me to Naruto, and I think it's really cool. But guess what? You know, her friend's visiting from overseas, and she's super hot, and, you know, she loves anime too, and she's only going to be here for a little while. You should come hang out with us. And I look at my buddy. I'm like, say less. You know, and it was funny because this friend of mine, he didn't grow up a nerd like I did. He wasn't like into anime or video games like that growing up. So this was basically him witnessing, because at this point, like for me to wear like a Naruto t-shirt, I think this was like 2019, I was starting to see the culture change. Like the Meg Thee Stallions, the Michael B. Jordans were starting to be open about this. NFL players and NBA players, you know, were starting to wear Dragon Ball Z and Naruto customized cleats. So the culture was starting to change. Like there was about 3 people in that bar that showed up after me, all wearing Dragon Ball Z t-shirts. And I'm just like, bro, like things are different. But back to the story, right? So me and my buddy, we go to the table. We go to the table, you know, with this dude, his girl, and, you know, her really hot friend. And, you know, we all just start talking and vibing. Now, unfortunately for me, she wasn't interested in me like that at all. She was feeling my buddy. So, you know what? It was bittersweet, right? It was bittersweet because that was supposed to be my time, right? I was supposed to get the last shot at the end of the game, you know, hit the game winner, have the crowd go wild. But you know what? I was like, man, this was a huge milestone in the life of the closet nerd Rich. Because I basically, you know, so like in my elementary school, right, like everybody was a nerd. And so it didn't really matter, right? But when I would go to summer camps, you know, those are the kids that were more into like sports and hip hop and sneakers and girls. So I didn't fit in with those kids. I got made fun of just for playing Pokemon on the bus. And so when I went to high school, I was like, all right, I got to keep this nerd shit under wraps. And I'm just going to try to, you know, I'm going to try to see if I can get as close to being a jock as possible. Right. And I kind of took that same approach in college. But basically, this is post-college. And so for my buddy who didn't, it was cool to show him. I was like, yo, see, times are different now, bro. And I got to see that myself. And in that one night, it was like, yo, like back in the day, you would have lost the girl, right, being into anime, but now you get the girl, you know, and one of the things that showed me is it's just like that night I owned it, right? Like I half of me thought, okay, they might actually be giggling because they watch it, but the other half was like, but either way, I was like, honestly, fuck you guys, like, yo, this is my thing now. I'm like trying to learn how to embrace it. And I guarantee you, if I basically had this sort of passage or, you know, the stereotypical gatekeeper approach, it wouldn't have worked out. But the fact is, it's like, you know, I tell this to my buddies, right? I'm learning now. I'm still learning how to fully be comfortable with that geeky side of me. Yeah, like, you know, because I'm a nerd at heart. And I said that in my documentary. Right. But I think the key is learning how to own it, right?
Dude, I think, honestly,
there are content creators out there, and I'll let you comment in a second. I'm sorry, but it's just like, I think what's helped me is, you know, even besides the celebrities, like I see YouTubers, you know, and granted, you know, I follow these guys like, you know, RDC groups, Caleb City, Long Beach Griffey, and they're just like me, you know, they're into anime and video games, but they're also into sports. They're also into hip hop music and sneakers. Like I'm seeing, and you know, again, they're not Michael B. Jordan, but they're basically multi-millions of YouTube subscribers. So I'm seeing it works, right? Those guys can be successful, be cool, and get the girl. It's all about learning how to own it, because there's a lot of people just like us, and but we just need to learn how to own it. But yeah, the floor is yours, my friend. My portion's over.
Yeah, I don't like. I think it comes down to like people that like. So there's a mask that people wear like every day. You know, like, you know, I'm trying to be the cool guy. I'm trying to be the macho guy, and like those people, if they do that all the time, they end up becoming their mask. And the problem with that is you become really fucking two-dimensional and boring.
Yeah.
You know, because there's nothing to you. You know, like
there's no depth.
Right. And you know, I think, you know, there are men and women like that, and they meet each other and they get along because, you know, that's what they're used to. But if you want a genuine connection with somebody, whether that be like a friend or a romantic connection, having something that you give a shit about, that you're passionate about, and then you can talk about, makes you interesting, right? Like, you know, I can talk about fucking gray wolves all day, or photography all day, or, you know, filmmaking all day, and that's a conversation starter. That's something that you have that Mr., you know, meathead, that's all his claim to fame is, and that's great. Maybe he'll meet somebody else that's also meathead, and, you know, they'll get along. But not everybody is looking for like you know, a two-dimensional person. And you know, you have like more to bring to the table if you're passionate about shit, you know.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna wrap it up just by with it. I'm gonna wrap this portion of this portion of the nerd culture topic by saying this. Well, first, this is the question. Number one, do you think you could beat me at Smash Brothers? I'm talking like, it doesn't matter, like 64, Melee, Brawl, Ultimate. Like, how confident are you in your
Dude, I suck.
Smash?
I honestly suck at Smash. I'll beat you at fucking Mario Kart any day of the week, or Halo, or like COD or something. But Smash Bros, I always pick Link, and he's like one of the worst characters. But
Oh my
I
God,
think
so do I. Oh no.
I think like the coolest character. But then like people pick Bowser or something, and then fucking throw me off the map, and I die instantly. And I don't really know how to do any cool shit. I just mash buttons.
Well, I don't know if you ever see like those Smash Brothers videos that go viral, but all those people that compete at like tournaments and whatnot,
Oh, they're
they
insane.
all have a
Yeah.
tendency to use like the light speed characters, because they can, you know, basically just go at like a 90 miles an hour, just hacking the
Yeah.
controllers. I've always preferred like the power characters like Link and Ike and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
I understand, like, you know,
Dude, Ike is OP, man.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
two slashes
Damn.
from that sword and it's a wrap, dude.
Yeah.
What would you say? Okay, so now back to the whole, I mean, with the DBZ and whatnot. Well, when we talked last time, you told me how, you know, you were really interested in getting into Yu Yu Hakusho, right? Or
Yeah. Well,
somewhat.
so I never watched the whole thing, but like when it was on Toonami, I would like that's like something I do at like every time it was on after school. Like I was so obsessed with Yu Yu Hakusho when it was first on, and I never watched it all the way through. Um, yeah, but that's definitely one of the ones that I really like.
I was thinking of you today when I hit up my editor, because right now I just finished the recording for the first top 10. You know, basically I'm doing a top 10 anime for
Right,
newbies. Right now
right.
I'm editing my script for the top 10 classics. And I just wrapped up the Yu Yu Hakusho one last night, and I was thinking about you, and I was like, okay, how would I pitch this show to Anthony? Now, I guess to you, I basically say, you know, so first off, Yu Yu Hakusho is huge on Toonami. I guarantee you are going to love this show. It does start off, you know, pretty episodic, once it gets into like its second season, that's when the
Right.
plot really takes off. Like
Right.
we're talking about one of the most critically acclaimed arcs in anime, period, that still gets brought up, still gets talked about today. The next two.
Right.
I also think the cast of characters very strong. Like the plot itself might take some time to pick up, but you will really enjoy the action, the
Right.
comedy. Like Yusuke is one of the most badass main characters. Like I haven't seen a main character like him since, and I
Yeah.
really do think if you watch it from the ground up, it is going to be one hell of an experience.
Right.
It's just an overall great story. But that is my Yu Yu Hakusho sales pitch to you. I'll leave the rest of my top 10 classics
Yeah,
video
dude,
comes out.
I need to watch it for sure, like all the way through. I think I've only seen like the first couple seasons. But yeah, I still love, what I've seen. So
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Don't sleep on Dragon Ball. Have you ever seen like the original Dragon Ball, like the one where Goku was a kid to the,
oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
See,
I think I actually like the original Dragon Ball better than Dragon Ball Z. Because
yeah.
I think the original Dragon Ball is more about story rather than it is like Dragon Ball Z is like, oh, like Cell's back and he's stronger and Goku's gotta like go Super Saiyan and shit his pants and like become the next become the next form and like scream for 8 episodes and then he's finally powerful and can defeat Cell and and that keeps happening over and over again and oh Majin Buu's back and like
Yeah.
it's
I,
I like the more story driven stories and Dragon Ball Z was cool because like when you're a kid, it's cool seeing shit like blow up and, like spirit bombs and stuff.
I think you'll enjoy. I think if you went back and it's funny because like I just got my nephew into anime and we're like watching Dragon Ball Z Kai from like the ground up.
Mm,
I think that and it's not just you. I've seen this where like I've noticed that sometimes for people that kind of grew up watching DBZ as a kid and then stepped away from it, I think looking at it from the outside in, it can look like a bunch of just meatheads screaming and there's no plot.
hmm
By no means do I think DBZ has the greatest or the most complex
Right,
plot. But
right.
I definitely do think there is a pretty good story there. I think if you went
Yeah,
back and you rewatched it, you could see like I think you'd appreciate it honestly maybe even more now. Especially like I would say from like the end of I would say from like the Demon Piccolo arc in Dragon Ball to like
hmm
the end of the Frieza saga. Like I think that's
Who
like the peak.
who's your favorite character?
Oh, well, I'll start with my favorite villain. Cell, man. Cell was my favorite. Cell was
Yeah,
and
Cell
is
was
still
cool.
my favorite
Yeah.
villain. Like there's just like he was just so cocky. But what I loved about Cell is he didn't start off as the strongest fighter. Like he had to basically kind of hide and like absorb people behind the scenes in order to get strong
hmm
enough to fight Piccolo and the androids. And I thought that was so cool watching a villain have to sort of
Right.
get it out the mud, so to speak, right? But he had to be smart and he had to find ways to like conceal his presence so they couldn't find him. And then later in the story, he like took advantage of Vegeta's pride and was like, "Hey, man, let me absorb the chick, and because then you'll want to fight me my full power." I loved how he always like he knew how to manipulate
Right. He
everybody
got inside of people's heads. Yeah.
because he had all their cells, and it wasn't just a physical thing like, "Oh, Goku can do Kamehameha, I can do it too." It's like, nah, okay. Here's how I'm gonna take advantage of him. Here's how I'm gonna take advantage of him. And he was just so good at it. And I loved his design too. I loved his
hmm
theme music. Like, oh my God. Honestly, I could talk about DBZ all day, but
Who's your
and then
favorite like hero?
I'm a Goku meathead, bro. Like, look, like the shirt. Let me see. The shirt I'm wearing right now has like
Oh yeah.
this is like
Yeah.
the T-shirt from the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. That's a whole different discussion, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I like Goku too.
yeah,
Trunks was always my favorite just because he was like he came and chopped up Frieza into like
yeah.
5 pieces with his sword and then blew him apart and like in 5 seconds.
That was so
Um,
dope.
but like uh yeah, I think Trunks or Piccolo.
Shit, Piccolo.
Because
Piccolo's
Piccolo is cool as fuck. Like
yeah.
he was like a villain, and he has like a really complex arc because like, you know, like with
Mm-hmm.
like Vegeta and stuff, like he
Right.
came back and became like, you know, one of the heroes.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think he has like the coolest like powers and coolest moves and stuff.
Yeah, and
I
his
don't know.
design is so dope. He has the cape and
Yeah.
then
Oh yeah,
has
he's like
like,
ripped.
yeah,
Like I mean, they're all
like
ripped, but like,
nah, he was so cold. I feel like some people forget, like, and you just said right now, people forget that this dude was a villain. Like Piccolo was evil to the core,
yeah, he
and
was like the
then
cell of
yeah,
the original.
and it's so cool, especially like, you know, when I'm like watching when I'm watching like, you know, old DBZ movies with my nephew for the first time, and I always loved him as like the side man to Goku, like when he was like Goku's right
Yeah,
hand man. Eventually, you know, Vegeta kind of got that role, but
yeah,
like it was just so cool to see Piccolo like develop as a character, go from this villain to someone who
yeah,
actually really cared. And of course, you know, the peak was when he sacrificed himself to save Gohan against, you know, like in the Saiyan saga. Like
right.
it's crazy, like me watching it with my nephew, I'm like reliving all the nostalgia all over again. But I'm like, yo, like this is like I still enjoy this a lot today.
Right,
It's like
right.
and I've watched a ton of anime with much deeper plots, you know, more complex characters like Attack on Titan, but I still love this show more than anything. Like I used to
Yeah,
have stacks of DVDs, like a closet's full, and I got rid of them all, obviously. But it's just like, you know, I love the characters and I love the story that's built around conflict and combat around these
right.
characters. We watch Vegeta go from a heartless villain to a family man who decided to blow himself up and take responsibility for everything and
Wearing
hug his
wearing
kid for the first time. Like,
wearing pink t-shirts and
yeah. And,
getting shit on for it.
you know, we watched Gohan go from this scaredy cat who didn't want to go near a battlefield to someone who would actually take over Goku's role and be the one to beat
Right,
Cell. Like not Trunks, not Piccolo, not Vegeta, not
right.
Goku. Like it was Gohan, and when he had his, and we watched him go from this little underdog to this just. Oh man, I recommend anybody if they want to get back into DBZ, I would watch Kai because Kai is like, well, just to put it in numbers, like they basically cut all the filler out of Z. So I think Dragon Ball Z is
Oh,
was the
really?
four, yeah, Dragon Ball Z is because you know the way that anime industry works, they're basically making
They're reinventing it.
well, they're making
Yeah,
it they're following a manga. So the thing is if the manga started in 19, basically you can cover a lot more in an episode than you can in a comic book. So since this is like a weekly serialized thing,
right,
they usually bring the anime out if the manga does good a year afterwards. So, you know, you can cover a
right,
lot more in 20
right.
minutes than you can in like a chapter a week. So they add a lot of fluff to kind of keep the distance. So Kai basically cuts out like most of the fluff and it's just basically just plot action. So we're talking a cut from 400 episodes to 178, so it's a much smoother
Damn.
watch. Yeah, you know, the soundtrack is kind of hit or miss because you know there was some copyright issues and they had to basically flip it around.
Yeah,
But I do think it's a smoother watch. Some fans might, if you're in, if the nostalgia, if you really got to have like the old everything, then I get that. But for me, I think it's a smoother watch for me to go back and watch Kind Out because it's just much better pacing and I still
hmm
get the action and arguably better voice acting. You know, it's yeah, man. You know, all and that's an announcement. You know, the top 10 classic will be coming out soon. There'll be a lot more recommendations. But before we kind of wrap up the geek talk, is there anything that you want to add, my friend? What kind of are you big into? Like what's your thing now? Like, is it Nintendo? Is it? I mean, you said you're a Twitch moderator. Like, you into like Minecraft, Fortnite, Call of Duty? Like, what's kind of like
I mean, I like I play. I always come back to old school RuneScape.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Is that
and
like
I play
MMO,
that
by the
like,
way? Is that like
yeah, it's like a
okay?
really old like MMO.
Okay.
But I like I'll hop on COD sometimes and play a few games. Um, but yeah, it's mostly just like I like there are some Twitch content creators, you know, that are so good, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're so entertaining and like, you know, my friend JP, he's known as Tactical Tickler on on Twitch.
Oh my God, that's a
Um,
weird name.
yeah, it's hilarious. He's but he's the one that I mod for, and his stream's hilarious, man. Like just today, we're all egging him on to chug black coffee out of a shoe, and he did that at the beginning of the stream.
That's crazy.
um,
Oh my
so
God.
it's just like fun to watch, and there's another girl that I watch, Hannah, and like I've become like good friends with her too, and it's really cool how through COVID I've still been able to maintain a social life because of Twitch.
Right.
Like because of, we all go on Discord and talk to each other and we talk in the chat, and like, yeah, it's definitely like a cure for loneliness.
Absolutely. I heard Microsoft's thinking about buying up Discord though. I don't know if that's gonna end up being a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, we'll see. That's crazy.
Man. All right, big dog. We got to transition into, one of the biggest topics, right? I want to talk, we're going to get now into yeah, that part will come in later at the end, but you put out a video not too long ago called Choosing No One. And this had to do with,
chasing
I said
chasing no
choosing. Oh, look at how I wrote it. Oh my God. Wow. Oh, good God. What did Jennifer Garner say on Wing? She was like, golly, geez. Anyway, my bad. But my man, but you put out a video called Chasing No One. I actually watched it again today. I watched all these videos again just to kind of refresh my memory.
hmm
And I thought it was very relatable. And you talked a lot about how the dangers or the trap of like the chase, right? I think there's this Hollywood sort of Disney perception of
right.
the chase, find the Cinderella, go after the princess. Like the movies are always about the chase, right? Usually,
Right.
if it's about the destination, it's usually the divorce or the fighting or something like that, right? But we
Right.
like to hype up the chase. That's where the movies come from, the damsel in distress. And you kind of, the video sort of talks about the dangers of the chase, and some of the struggles that you may or may have not had in past relationships. What I wanted to kind of ask you is, it's like, what, to kind of explain to us, like, what is it about the chase that some of us may not realize how dangerous the love of just the chase itself can be to ourselves and also relationship, like.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the like the chase is that it inherently ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do? Then what are you left with? You're gonna chase somebody else because you got what you wanted. Um, Not to mention, like, the chasing, like, the connotation is that somebody else is running away from you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
people don't think about that. But if you're if you're spending all your time and energy chasing somebody that maybe doesn't even want anything to do with you, just likes the attention, then like that's you're wasting your life away, you know? Like, there are some people out there that just like the attention, and there's being addicted to the chase, and then somebody else being addicted to the attention. It's an infinite cycle of you just running after them and then them running away, and no one wins really in that scenario.
Well, it reminds me of the dichotomy between love versus lust, right? Like, a mentor of mine recommended this book to my friend who had recently gone through a really bad breakup, and it's called Is It Love or Is It Addiction? And I think that, like you were saying, I think I think there's a lust that comes with chasing or being chased,
Right.
but love is supposed to be something that's unconditional. It's loyalty, it's being there.
Right.
And in the video, and your sister, speaks on, the type of person that you are when it comes to romance. Like you are someone who you're ready to give it all, right? There's no, like, if it's them, if you're choosing that person, they don't have to prove anything to you. Like it's there.
Right. Right.
And, your sister talks about how, like, that can be very intense for someone else who may not be ready to receive that love. And it had me thinking, and she talks about this too, and I'll ask you this, how important is that, the self-love? Because when I think about someone wanting to be chased, it, like, I think when we're not, for one thing, when we're not
Yeah.
able to
Well,
love ourselves, it's
yeah.
hard to love. It's almost impossible to love somebody else because we don't see ourselves as deserving of love. So it can be
Right.
hard for someone else to give you something that you don't feel like you deserve, for one
Yeah. I
thing.
mean, so people love being chased, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes them feel validated about themselves,
Right.
which is one thing. They haven't, perhaps those people that are being chased and love it and don't acknowledge you for chasing them or giving them attention, they love it because they haven't found something within themselves that they value, and they like that external validation, when in reality, if you truly didn't give a shit, and you know you knew the value that you had, you wouldn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of that is, to be the chaser, you're running from yourself, right? Because you feel the need to prove yourself in a way that's not natural. So the chaser's at fault too, because if you really knew your value, you'd realize that going out of your way to do all these things and to prove yourself to someone is bullshit. Because if that person really did value you and you knew your value, then it wouldn't matter. That person would be like, yeah, no, I'm down to climb a mountain with you and do some romantic stuff, but I'm also down to like eat a pint of ice cream each and get high in our sweatpants and watch cartoons. Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and like, because they know, and that you're worth their love and you're worth your own love. And I don't think a lot of people get that. Like, people are trying to chase something that they shouldn't be, when in reality they should be thinking about, like, why why should I not be running for myself? Why should I just, what is it about me that can draw people in, and
Mm-hmm.
how can I work on that instead?
Now, in the video, your sister was very passionate about how, like, your example for her has really, you know, it's given her belief again. Well, let me that'll be the follow-up question, but I would say, like, what has that experience been like for you, as far as, like, this sort of, if you're comfortable sharing, like, the way I would say your presence in the relationship, for better or worse, like, what has that experience been like for you, if you're comfortable sharing?
I think in the times when I was chasing
Mm-hmm.
and going crazy for somebody, it literally was that. Like, I became somebody else, like, that I didn't like,
Mm-hmm.
because for whatever reason the other person wasn't as into it as I was. And it's like you said, like, you become addicted to it. And
Mm-hmm.
you know I I've become like a fucking asshole before, because for whatever reason I'm trying to like, hold on and clutch to this, like, basically clutch to smoke. try to grab onto smoke because nothing's there, you know. And it took a while for me to realize, like, dude, you are just making an asshole of yourself, and you're destroying who you are. Like, you're turning into somebody that you don't want to be, you know, becoming like controlling and jealous and all these things, because for whatever reason that person is not 100% giving what you're giving back. Like, they're not reciprocating. um so yeah, like, the just not like the lesson that I've learned is just to not do that anymore, because I always feel bad for that person for dealing with me, who, when I'm not myself, you know, when I'm outside of who I normally am, because I'm running after them and trying to do all this bullshit, you know. um yeah, it's just never a good thing.
Well, I mean, I can definitely relate to that, you know, as far as like, as far as, you know, really, how do I say this? Like, I think love is part of that, is wanting that sort of like security, that foundation. Like, hey, like, I really like you. Like, can you be honest with me and tell me that you really like me? Like, I
Hmm.
need that. And I think that that need, that desire can, on the other side, you know, be a little overwhelming for the other person.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, you know, one of my mentors once telling me how freedom is synonymous with unconditional love. And part of that unconditional love is being able to, you know, respect where that person is as far as how
Right.
much, you know, their love and their development. You know, I know, you know, like, I know we talked about in the past how, like, you know, for example, like, you know, a person can express, because, you know, I guess on the other side is that I think obviously it's important to have love for that person, but at the same time, you know, I think it's the difference between letting a faucet run uncontrollably, whereas opposed to having a bowl of just water that's just still, right? The love, when it sort of becomes addictive or becomes dangerous and overwhelming, is when it's like, all right, how, you know, I guess not letting the process sort of move. It's like, are you
Hmm.
going to be moving anytime soon? Do you want to move in with me? Are you talking to anybody else, kind of thing?
Yeah, dude, I
Um,
don't even want to talk about
yeah,
people moving, but
yeah,
we can get into that after. But
yeah, you know, and you know, just the idea that like you're ready to, like, I don't know, marry this person after like the second or third date. I see, you know, I think there is for lack of a better term, there's a skill or process in, I think, learning how to sort of match that energy, that love in a relationship,
yeah.
because some person might be here and the other person's there, and it might not necessarily be that that person can't get to where you are. It's just like they it's they got to go through their own process, and just because we're there, the part is how we feed into that, because
Right.
too much of anything can be dangerous, right? Like, it's fine to have that love, but I think at the same time, it does, part of that relationship is the fact that it's 50-50, it's cohesive, right? It's
And
like you don't
I think the trap that people get into is, you know, you hear the cliche, like, they fall in love with the idea of somebody and not the person, right?
oh yeah.
And I've always fucking hated cliches, because everyone says that, and no one really thinks about really what it means. And, you know, one of my favorite novels, actually my favorite book of all time, really, um, by John Steinbeck, East of Eden, the main character, Adam Trask, is he falls in love with this woman, but his downfall is that he doesn't see who she truly is.
hmm
And she gets miserable because she can never live up to who he sees her as, this like perfect angelic figure. um and he destroys himself because he eventually realizes that she's basically the fucking devil. um, and he just refused to see it. And the important thing is not rushing to judgment when it comes to dating people. Like the people that are like, oh, I want to get married after like 3 dates. Like, how the fuck do you know, if I was talking to someone recently about this, how like I read an article or something. I don't remember where I saw it, but basically, if you think about it in terms of like how much time you spend with somebody, right?